All right, so it's time for me to talk about one of the tools that has made my work in this office way simpler, way easier, and honestly, a bit more fun. But first, I have to get it set up. And there you go. This is the SmartDesk 2, the hybrid edition from Autonomous. Yeah, so if you've been watching me for the last maybe 2 to 4 or 5 weeks, this is what it looks like when you come to my channel. I tend to talk about the products here, and then all of the B-roll goes on top of that, and you get to see the actual product that I'm talking about in my videos. And honestly, that's the reason why I haven't been able to actually talk about this desk by itself as a product, because I've been too busy using it as a way of getting the rest of my work done. But now it's finally time for me to just talk about the Autonomous SmartDesk 2, and I freaking love this thing. I have been using crank-style standing desks for quite a while now. I'm gonna go through a couple of them right now, but yeah, motorized is definitely the way to go, and honestly, getting it up to this height and being able to create the shot you're looking at right now, man, so much easier with this thing than with the other tables. However, I'm not very good at cable management, so I know a lot of you are gonna get into the comments and say that everything looks really messy. To be honest, all I'm trying to do here is have fun doing the work that I have to do and try to do it consistently. So honestly, for me, ain't nobody got time for all that cable management. At least it's not too bad. This may not be the best example. But that's actually the first desk that I ever got that was a standing convertible desk. It is a crank style, and this one's called the multi-table. I actually still really like this one. It's very sturdy. It has gone with me to multiple locations from my house to here in this office that I've had for a couple of years. And honestly, it is a really good workhorse of a desk. I outfitted it with an extra long IKEA tabletop there. That way I can have a little bit more desk space to put stuff on there. And it's honestly it's actually my editing bay. And what I do is I just come in, put my stuff down, and I just sort of sit there in the sitting position, obviously, before I get started with everything that I have to do in the office. When I'm ready to really get to work, I just crank that thing up. And I count the revolutions it takes using the crank in order to get it to where I need it to be. So that's one way of having that precision. In this case, it's somewhere between 23 and 26 revolutions to get it to a comfortable typing position and also see my monitor pretty easily. And that's really just what a crank table is supposed to be like. It's pretty easy to use, it's very sturdy, I have all of the stuff that I need on there, and it keeps everything pretty stable, and it doesn't wobble around a whole lot. So when I'm standing at that desk, I can get quite a bit of work done, and there are some benefits to having a standing desk. Mainly the fact that you can have a healthier work day because you're not just slouched down in a chair and you're using muscles that you wouldn't otherwise be using if you were just sitting. But the Autonomous desk is what reminded me that having a standing desk could actually be really useful for stuff like this, getting in front of the camera. I did try to make this particular setup work with other crank-style desks. This one is the one from IKEA. It's some weird Swedish word. Give me a second. The Skarsta. So the Skarsta sit and stand desk, it's also a crank edition, but I also have coasters on the bottom because I originally thought that I would just move this one table around and do a bunch of different segments in different places, but that ended up being just me overthinking it. There are a couple of other quirks about this desk. It's still the same crank mechanism, and it's not bad. It's not bad at all. This is actually a very affordable and good choice if you just want to have a convertible desk. But the crank requires way more revolutions than the multi-table, and because of that, it's hard to get that perfect precision as to where you want it to be for things like what I'm doing right now. No matter which way you slice it, that takes a while. Trying to get this thing up to the position that would allow me to have the A-roll clips that you see on my channel and that you've been watching for the last number of weeks. It's a lot easier with a motorized desk, especially one that is very exact as to where it goes, and not to mention the fact that when I'm cranking the table up and down, it's really wobbly. So it's just a matter of making things a little bit more convenient, but also a little bit more exact. So that's the IKEA Skarsta, but finally when Autonomous reached out and said, hey, we would love to see what your thoughts are on a standing desk, a motorized standing desk, well, here it is, and to be honest, I love the hell out of this thing. One thing to note though is that the motor and the frame in particular are very heavy boxes. They come in very heavy boxes, and I have a staircase here at my office, so I definitely had to get some help from, in this case, my brother, in order to get the desk in here. But once you open up the boxes, the assembly is not all that bad. The motor is what's going to be used to actually do the crank mechanism, motorized of course, so you don't have to do the manual labor. You just follow the directions, and I had no problems actually getting this whole thing set up pretty easily. There are a couple of features on here, including its own built-in cable management on the tabletop with these little areas where the cables can go through, so they're not just sprawled out on top of the desk. Again, I'm not the best at cable management, so if you were to look underneath this desk right now, there are cables flying all over the place. My apologies, I'm just not really good at that. And then of course you have the height selector over on the side. It's right here, and you have a number of different buttons, not only for using the arrows to raise it up and down manually, but also for programmable settings so that you can get it exactly to where you want it to be and then just press that button in order to get it to that spot. This is where things get really interesting because I'm not just using this at the number 4 position, which is the tallest at around 46 inches. I'm actually also bringing it down to different increments for different purposes. The number 4 position is where I have my A-roll positioning, and then number 1 is at the lowest. We'll see what the height is, but basically I bring it down to that height so that my chair here can fit just like this, and I can get more just sitting desk work done. This is the sitting position, obviously. Number 2 is just a little bit higher than that at 36 inches. This is actually something that I use when I have really big items, because this is not just my A-roll set. I also have a B-roll camera right here, the overhead rig using a C-stand, and if I turn this on, you'll probably notice that this is the setup I use for all of the overhead shots to make things easier when it comes to showing off products. The 3rd position is at 42 inches. That way it's a little bit higher up and I can show smaller items like, for example, smartphones. So that's just a look at the desk that I've been using for my videos here in the office. I just realized I need to have just like one setup that allows me to get videos done on a consistent basis without really overthinking things too hard. And once I was able to get things set up with just the A-roll camera and the overhead camera, this became the place this is like my comfort zone here, that I come to my office when I know that I have some products to do and I need to get them done. Everything is ready for me to go. Now, to be fair, not everything is like perfect about this desk. There are some quirks to mainly the tabletop that I'm not the most happy about. Mainly that the tabletop scratches really easily. I was super careful when taking the tabletop out of its box so that I wasn't dragging it on my floor, which is probably really dirty as well. And I got it set up and everything was pristine and all good. Now, if you're like me, or really any normal human being, you probably drag a lot of items across your tabletops just because that's just human nature. Even things like a mouse, for example, is easy to just drag around on top of a surface. After just a couple of days, I saw that there were a lot of really superficial scratches on here, and over the course of the last number of weeks, they have just gotten worse or more abundant. But then again, if you're watching the overhead rig in most of my videos, you probably don't even notice a whole lot anyway. So I probably won't be replacing this anytime soon. I don't feel the need to. Even if there are some blemishes on the table itself, it doesn't bother me in terms of what I want my videos to look like, and clearly it doesn't really bother a whole lot of you. Of course, what's funny is if I talk about it now everyone's going to be looking at it and scrutinizing. Anyway, it's whatever to me, honestly. Now, there are a couple of different editions of the SmartDesk 2. There's the Home Edition and the Business Edition, and they are $100 in difference in terms of price. So the main difference between the two is that the Home Edition only gets up to 48 inches in height, and I'm at 46 for what I'm doing right now, so I could actually go for the Home Edition. This one, however, that I'm using is the Business Edition. It gets up to 52 inches in height. The business version also comes with a longer warranty, 7 years for the frame, 1 year for the tabletop, as opposed to 5 years for the frame and 1 year for the tabletop on the Home Edition. And yeah, that should pretty much do it for this look at the Autonomous SmartDesk 2. I love this desk. I've said it a bunch of times in this video. I finally wanted to give you a little bit of a tour of my setup and finally get a little bit meta about the thing that has made these A-roll segments possible over the last month or so. Let me know what you think about standing desks. Do you use them in any of your work applications, or do you just use them at all at home? I personally think that standing is a lot better just for productivity because it keeps you on your toes, again, quite literally. I keep using that pun. But at the same time, for my A-roll segments, I just like being a little bit more animated, having a little bit more fun with it, and not just sitting in a desk or sitting in a chair trying to get all of these lines out. So with all of that said, I'm gonna go ahead and call it on this one. Thank you so much for watching once again. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. Make sure you hit that thumbs up button and also get into the discussions in the comment sections down below. But yeah, I'll see you in my next video, and until then, I'm actually out of tea now. I'll just remind you to enjoy your tea, everybody.